All right, hour number 3, Need to Know Morning Show. AM 1100 The Flag gets brought to you in part by Personal Touch Marketing and Manufacturing. They don't just create stuff, they create unique things. You want to say thank you, I appreciate you, but you don't have any idea what you want or need? Stop in and spend some time with Sherry and her team at Personal Touch. Let them help you come up with a perfect gift. Their website is ptmark.com. That's a good place to start. You can see all the things that they do. They do engraving, maybe tumblers, cutting boards, special anniversary, weddings, things like that. They do embroidery, banners, vinyl printing, promotional items. They do golf balls, ornaments, coasters, and they take a lot of pride in doing just about all the work on site, start to finish. Go to ptmark.com, ptmark.com to find out more about them. It's 8:07 here on this Wednesday morning, July 29th, and every month we get to the honor of introducing you to another distinguished member of our law enforcement community. We're thankful to have Travis Johnson from the West Fargo Police Department in studio with us this morning. Travis, how you doing, man?
Good. Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. Appreciate having you here with us. I'll have you pull that microphone just a little closer to you there.
Push it up more by your mouth. There you go. That thing moves. Now you're good.
So Officer Johnson is the honoree this month in the Luther Family Ford Salute to Law Enforcement. We're recognizing the West Fargo PD and all the good people there. Assistant Chief Jerry Boyer has led that team well since Heath Yonke went to the FBI a month or two or so ago. And so we thank Jerry and the team at West Fargo PD for doing everything that they do. And so, Travis, thanks for coming in. It's great to get a chance to meet you and to have you on the radio with us. Had a chance to get to know you a little bit over at Luther Ford the other day, and great to see you again. Give our audience a little bit of a feel for what you do at West Fargo PD. Tell us the different things that you do with your role there.
Well, right now I'm back on patrol and basically ride around in a squad car or answer calls for service and try and help people out when we can and try and stop a few things from happening before they happen.
What do you get the most calls for?
Oh, boy.
Is there a certain thing, or does it just kind of vary from day to day?
It varies a lot day to day, and I think that's kind of what attracted me to the job in the first place, is that you never knew really what you'd be doing.
Yeah. Some people love that routine. I found that law enforcement members hate routine. They hate doing the same thing all the time. They love the variety, and you just never know what you're going to get into. Sometimes that can be the bad stuff, though. Do you have a little talk with yourself when you go into those situations that could be tough ones? How do you get ready for those things when you don't know what's coming and it could be bad?
Well, I guess a lot of it just kind of reverts back to the training, and we're trained really well between early starting out in the academies and stuff like that, and through our continuing education. So we're pretty well versed on a lot of that stuff, and you can't plan for every single situation. They're all slightly different, and they'll have their own little unique twists, and we just have to kind of roll with it. So as you get there, you evaluate and reevaluate, and
you've got to think quick on your feet, boy.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Are you to the point now, so you've been doing this since 2005, in West Fargo since 2007 or so. You've done investigations, patrol. You've kind of seen just about all of it there. Are you to the point now with your training and just the repetition and doing it for so many years where you don't think like, okay, this is going to be a bad situation, this is going to be a good situation? Your training just kicks in and you just respond. Like whatever happens, you just go and you don't really think about it, or do you?
Well, I mean, you're always still thinking about it, but I mean, a lot of the reactionary stuff to keep us safe is very much instinctual. But again, you're always looking at the unique, different situation and just having to evaluate as you go.
Yeah. You talked about never knowing what the day is going to hold. You never know what the future is going to hold, what's going to happen this week or this weekend. I think back to the protest march that I covered. And when the marchers came to the West Fargo Police Department, you had a perimeter set up around the whole thing, and it was a very peaceful. There were some high emotions, people saying things, people frustrated with different things. But as a law enforcement officer, we've seen it with this situation, the DAPL protest. Part of law enforcement sometimes is showing the fist, and then sometimes part of law enforcement is taking a deep breath and remaining calm. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's basically like you said. It's just knowing the better way to react to it. And some things, just us being there is enough.
What did you learn from your time in investigations that has helped you now as you're doing patrol again?
I think it's made me more thorough of an investigator, an investigating officer, the initial guy on scene, because I know what we're looking for, whether it's passing it off to a detective down the road and what he's going to follow up on, some things that I probably wouldn't have thought of before, some other avenues to investigate, or all the way down to handing it off to the prosecutor and potentially going to trial, and what the judge, the jury, the defense, the prosecutor, what they're going to ask or be looking for too.
Yeah. Well, that's great information to have, no doubt about that. In addition to your patrol duties, you're the lead officer, lead advisor for the department's Police Explorers program. What's the Police Explorers program?
Well, it's a program through the Boy Scouts of America. It's basically owned by them, and then Exploring Nationwide is just a huge program. It's really career exploration for high school students and early college students, and it can be anything from law enforcement to ambulance, fire, communications, radio stuff, aviation, you name it. There's probably something out there in the country for it.
Okay. We see them around at cruise nights. They're riding the bikes and kind of, keeping an eye on things and that
those are
sort
my
of thing.
students.
Yeah. Yep.
So you have some that come to West Fargo PD and want to find out what law enforcement is all about. Yep. Tell us about that. Something you enjoy doing?
Yeah. I actually grew up as a police explorer here in Fargo, and so I knew that from doing that this was a job for me, and being able to be the person in charge now and pass on some of those same experiences that I found beneficial back when I was 15 years old to the next generation, whether they decide to become a cop based off of doing the program, or they look at this and go, no.
Let somebody else do it.
Yeah, either way, I mean, in our eyes, it's still a win because, they educated themselves about it, and, if versus them spending 4 years in college and lots of money and trying to figure out, I get to the street and I don't like this. Mm-hmm. I was very fortunate to have that program and knowing through the hands-on training that, this was totally up my alley and something I wanted to do.
Did you always think you wanted to be a cop?
It was probably always something like that or like through the military. And a lot of that was like my grandparents, 3 of my grandparents were in World War II. So, I mean, that's pretty crazy to say 3. I mean, you expect both grandfathers maybe at my age, but my grandmother was too. So, that was pretty impactful on me growing up. And then my father was a private investigator for over 30 years. So, kind of fell into it.
A little bit in the family.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. We're visiting here on the Need to Know Morning Show with Officer Travis Johnson from the West Fargo Police Department. He is the honoree in this month's Luther Family Ford Salute to Law Enforcement. I want to thank Joel Bechtold and his team at Luther Ford for helping us put this program on. Also want to say thanks to Mark Oslin and the team at Sandy's Donuts for delivering some donuts over to Luther Ford and also West Fargo PD for the officers and the team at West Fargo PD and the Luther Ford gang as well. When someone asks you, Travis, what's the best part of your job as a police officer? What do you enjoy doing the most? Is there a certain part of it that really stands out for you?
Well, I guess for me, it is really my Explorer program, and just having 11 years into that, it's really my baby, as a lot of people refer to it as. I've poured my heart and soul into that for, like I said, 11 years. So it's
what are some of the rewarding stories you've heard from kids there coming out of that program?
Anything from the parents themselves saying that the kids really enjoy it and that they've learned a lot from it to I guess it's really neat for me to see some of the students as they come in their first year through them leaving our program, going to college, and then after 11 years, I've got some that are actually in the field now.
Nice.
So
that's kind of fun.
It's kind of neat seeing it first full circle and actually getting to work side by side with some of them. So.
Yeah, cool. Tell me about something that you've learned about the job that nobody could have maybe told you going in. You just had to learn it. Maybe it's an experience. Maybe it's a mindset you've had to have. wherever you want to go with that. But what have you learned about the job that you really just had to, like, nobody could have told you, but now you've been through it, you're like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Oh boy, that's tough. There's just so many aspects of it. I mean, from growing up, spending all that time as an explorer to going through the academy, I don't think anything really prepares you for it rather than just being out there.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's, your very first traffic stop and how crazy that is and how nervous you are about doing that, to, going to domestics, and every little bit of it is just really on the job training was by far the best stuff I've ever got.
Here's a question for you, and I hope I ask this in a way that makes sense, but it feels to me like, there's a world outside of our window here, and we don't see much of it, those of us that are just civilians or whatever. But it's like, remember the old movie The Matrix? Like, if you could really see what's going on, like this house, there's something going on or whatever. It feels to me like the more the time goes on with mental health issues, with drug issues or whatever, it feels like the dark stuff is just all over. Like every other house in the neighborhood, there's something awful going on that we just don't know about. As someone who's been kind of behind that curtain a little bit more, what are your impressions of the community? Is our community still a place that's fairly safe? Is there like more stuff out there than what we think? How would you describe our community from what goes on as you learn about it from a law enforcement perspective?
Well, I guess, I would have to say in general, yeah, our community is safe. We have good cops all over. We have good people all over. I mean, we have the public that calls in about things that just don't seem right, and that's a huge help to us because, there aren't that many of us really. And sure, are bad things around? Yeah, absolutely. But compared to bigger cities, that I've even visited, it's certainly not as prevalent.
Yeah. There's more good people out
Absolutely.
there than bad people.
Yeah.
Do you think with all the conversation about law enforcement right now and how law enforcement is being targeted in so many places, even here in our community, we're seeing otherwise what I would say to be good, honorable people having their character besmirched by others who want to find something there that doesn't seem to most of us like is really there? Is it going to be harder for law enforcement to recruit the kind of young people coming into the profession that you need to maintain it going forward? Do you think that's a big issue?
I can certainly see it being an issue, yeah. I mean, we've seen a downward trend in applications, just the numbers over the last few years. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to get quality people still, but, the pool is smaller.
What about more retirements? Are more people just getting out that we're going to maybe stay in longer and just with all this stuff going on now decide, I'm getting out of here. I've had enough. I'm going to go to the lake.
Again, locally, I guess I don't see that. Nationally, of course, I mean, you see all over.
Yeah, Minneapolis, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
Who'd want to work that job?
Nobody in their right mind.
Man. Yeah. What goes through your mind when you hear people that aren't in law enforcement talking about the tactics and procedures of law enforcement? We hear about chokeholds, and this, for whatever reason, this awful thing that the police officer did in Minneapolis to George Floyd has turned into a conversation about chokeholds, which is bizarre to me because what killed George Floyd wasn't a chokehold, but we got to do something, so we feel like we're doing something. What goes through your mind? What you and your colleagues, what do you talk about when you hear people talking about, here's how policing should be done?
Well, I guess, I mean, for me, I think a lot of it is the understanding, of the general public. And a lot of that, I think, helps with like our outreach programs, whether it's like our Citizens Academy or, again, our Explorers. And like we talked about, some of the kids that take my program might not end up becoming officers, and that's great. We still have essentially an ally because we've sent them through basically the same training we receive, and now they have a better understanding of how and why and when we do those certain things.
Mm-hmm. Interesting stuff. 8:21 here on the Need to Know Morning Show. Last question I have for you. There's a lot of talk about body cameras and squad car cameras. I think I know this, but I'll ask you to be sure. What do you have as far as cameras in cars and body cams in West Fargo?
In West Fargo, we've got our in-car cameras and body mics. We don't have the body cameras yet. I'm sure that'll be coming at some point. But, starting in an agency that we didn't even have in-car cameras, and then progressing to an agency that had in-car, and eventually,
Now, the problem with body cameras is storing it in the cloud and all that. What do you do? How do you store your mics then on your uniform? Where does that go into some database too, where they can check it at the end of the day? And how long do they keep it?
That's above me.
Okay.
How long they keep and everything. But yeah, there's servers that keep the stuff for a designated period.
Okay.
Do you have to turn it on, or is it going all the time? How does it go?
The in-car ones with the mics activate either when we tell it to, or when we activate our emergency lights or siren.
Okay. So all right. Yeah, and that's the microphone on you as well, and the squad camera.
Yeah, they're paired.
Okay.
They're paired to each other.
They're paired up. Okay, interesting stuff. Travis, this has been really great to have you here. Thanks for what you do. You don't hear it enough, but we appreciate it. And there's a million people out there who are never gonna. Maybe they're too bashful to say it, or they're just come in contact with you, but you're well supported, you're well appreciated here in this community. And there's going to be a few here and there from time to time, but generally people here know how important you guys are and what you do. We say God bless you, protect you from all the stuff out there, and thanks for everything that you do, and thanks for coming by this morning.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Officer Travis Johnson from the West Fargo Police Department. Want to say thanks again to Luther Family Ford for helping us put this program together, and thanks as well to Mark Oslin and the team at Sandy's Donuts. It's 8:23.